Welcome to the final week, week 7 of Managing Diversity. So, this week, we're not introducing any particularly new material. What we're doing this week is you're using all the knowledge that you have gleaned over the last 6 weeks to devise or build a cultural competency plan. And so the only assignments you have to do this week are you're going to review the required readings, you're going to work on your reflection video, and you're going to work on your cultural competency plan. What I wanted to go through this week is to give just some examples of how companies in America, as of 2025, this may change in the future because programs within companies change. But as of 2025, I want you to know about some of the initiatives that some companies are doing to create inclusive companies where everyone feels a sense of belonging. And I'm going to give you 4 examples. There are tons more examples out there, but this is only supposed to be a mini lecture, so I'm only going to give you 4 examples. So let's get started. The first one I want to talk about is with Google. So just to give a little bit of context, historically, it has been known that Black students, Black and brown students, tend to come out of college, if they do go to college, with significantly more debt than people of other races. And then when you compound that with the fact that Black people are often paid less for the same role than people of other races, you think about the fact that research has shown that Black people are not as, how do I say it, not as skilled at negotiating their salaries as some other races. So you compound that with the debt that Black people are coming out of college with. They're starting with lower wages compared to their counterparts. They're not negotiating higher wages and salaries. They're typically coming from single family households. So one person, such as maybe a mother or a dad, has significantly more debt than, say, if another family from another race that has more than one person contributing to the household. So all these issues tend to stack up. And so what I'm getting at is that Black and brown people tend to have a lot more debt and struggle a lot more to pay off that debt than some other races may experience. And so what Google did was they introduced a student loan reimbursement program where each year Google will match up to $2,500 of student loan payments that a Black or brown employee makes. So if you have a student loan, you're a Black and brown employee, you make $2,500 or more in payments toward your student loan, Google will match that $2,500 for you. So it's pretty small, especially given that Google has a very small Black population and they can easily wipe out all the debt of their Black and brown people if they wanted to. Um, but it still contributes something toward helping eradicate this problem. All right. Next one I want to talk about is Apple. And this one is actually the one that I really, really love. I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but I've actually experienced it where I went into an Apple store. And obviously, if you're not a fan of Apple products, you probably haven't experienced it, but I'm a huge fan of Apple products. And I'm using an Apple computer right now to record this lecture. But they employ people with disabilities. And more specifically, in customer-facing roles in their stores, they employ people that are deaf or hard of hearing. And I think that is so admirable. And so what happens is that these individuals, they have a tablet and there's an interpreter on the tablet. And that person is fluent in sign language. And so when the customer, let's say when I speak, the person on the tablet hears what I'm saying, and then they sign to the customer service rep in the Apple store. That person in the Apple store signs back to the person on the tablet, and the person on the tablet communicates with me. I think that is so admirable, so super cool, that Apple is putting those accommodations in place. It cannot be an inexpensive accommodation because to hire an interpreter for the full shift of a person who is deaf or hard of hearing is probably a lot of money, but Apple can afford it. And they're creating that environment of inclusion and belonging for people with disabilities. So super cool. The next one is employee resource groups. So a lot of companies have these, and I'd be surprised if there are any companies out there that don't have these, although I know there are some that don't. But employee resource groups, and specifically at Johnson and Johnson, and employee resource groups are created more as a support network within organizations where people can go connect with other peoples that um, look like themselves and that may have similar experiences to themselves. And it creates a rich environment for sharing. And it also creates a support network and it's also a mentoring opportunity. So, usually within these ERGs, they're what we call executive sponsors, which are people that are very high up in the company. And those people are usually the identity of the employee resource group or employee resource network. So let's say it's LGBTQIA plus ERG, the executive sponsor or sponsors are usually a member of the LGBTQIA plus population. And so they create a mentorship opportunity to hopefully provide advancement for people within the network. And in addition to just advancement, it really creates a rich environment for sharing and caring among people of similar identities. The last one I'm going to talk about for this week's lecture is pay equity. And the company that I want to talk about for this is actually MasterCard. Now, some people may not give MasterCard kudos for doing this type of program because it actually came about due to a pay discrimination lawsuit in which they settled for $26 million. And in that lawsuit, MasterCard acknowledged that it had underpaid female, Black, and Hispanic employees. So not a good thing to be happening. But born out of that lawsuit, MasterCard now does annual pay equity audits to make sure that people that are doing similar roles and doing similar jobs are getting within the same ballpark of pay. Okay, so you don't have, let's say, a white man who's a general manager making significantly more money than a Black man who is in a similar role as in a general manager role doing similar work. And so that does definitely create more of an equitable and dare I say equal playing field for employees. So those are just some of the equitable strategies that I find admirable in companies out there. There are a lot more that exist that you can definitely go research. And I look forward to hearing about some of these strategies in your cultural competency plan for this week. Thank you.